I did throw one. I forgot my broom all the way at the glass, ran back, got it, slammed it in front of my rock, swept it into the door button. I was pretty proud of that. Great sprint bags, you know, forward and then seized it into the. I mean, I drafted for you on. Oh, you got it. What did you get?
Jackson, or something like that.
I need to look up the flood zones, get that to you. It is falling the rest. Every couple of years you guys have, I don't know what's going on with your environmental section. Like, we just input the wrong emails and we won't get any of your scoping for months and then. Yeah. Awesome. Well,
That was the same.
what's that?
Don mentioned that the other day.
Yeah, the Chino Lake one didn't make it to Collins.
All right, everybody, it's 12:01. We've got quorum. We don't have everybody here, but go ahead and call this meeting to order. So this is the Fast Planning Technical Committee meeting. It is Wednesday, January 7th, 2026. And the call to order is at 12:01 p.m. For introduction of technical committee members I see present, we have with us today Michael Bradley, Stephen Hope sitting in for Michelle Denton, Kate Duber, Randy Bailey sitting in for Brett Nelson, John Tardis, Jason Olds, Bob Christash, Corey Richardson, Bill Rogers, and Kellen Spillman. So technical committee members I see absent at this time include Tim Glidden, Alexa Green, John Weinberger, Jacob Toyrick, Lieutenant Mike Lieutenant Mike Roberts, and Walker Ringstad. And then for the record, RJ Stump has joined us. Any technical committee members I missed? Okay, seeing none, for Fast Planning staff, we have myself, Jackson Fox, Deborah Todd, Olivia Lunsford, and Corey DiRitigliano. And then we have one guest in our meeting today, Jack Barnwell, online. That takes us to the approval of the January 7th agenda. Can I get a motion on the agenda? Thanks, Bob. Is there a second?
Yep.
Thanks, Kate. Any changes to the agenda? It is a light one today. Might be able to get out of here in less than an hour. There are no action items. Everything is just informational updates. But I am hoping that we can spend a good amount of time on the public survey results for our Metropolitan Transportation Plan update towards the end of the meeting. Okay. Not seeing any changes to the agenda. Anyone opposed to approval of the agenda as presented? Hearing none, we'll consider it approved. That takes us to approval of December 3rd, 2025 meeting minutes, which are on pages 2 through 5 of the packet. Can I get a motion on the minutes? So moved. Thanks, Bob. One second. I'll second. Thanks, Corey. All right, any edits to the minutes? Okay, hearing none, anyone opposed to approval of the minutes as presented in the packet? Hearing none opposed, we'll consider those approved. That takes us to staff work group and chair report, which begins on page 6 in your packet. All I have for you here today is a recap of the policy board meeting on December 17th and just a few items to highlight for everyone. First one of which is the Chino Riverwalk project. Right-of-way negotiations have progressed between the railroad and the DOT right-of-way department. There is a new right-of-way acquisition option that has been put on the table, which is an outright acquisition or purchase of the land for the trail and the uneconomic remnant between the trail and the river's edge. And that is going to advance to the railroad board meeting later this month here for their approval. Once that, if the railroad board approves of that option, that price tag will come back to our technical committee and policy board for acceptance of that price tag and providing the funding for the purchase of that property. But behind the scenes though, there is a new construction cost estimate, that we received in the past month or so.
Yeah.
And so later this month, I'm gonna be meeting with the city engineering department and, Yvette Hall, the DOT project manager, to discuss the latest design details and construction cost estimates. Beyond the price tag, some of the things we also need to discuss is the match and maintenance agreements for construction of the project. This project was originally set up with state legislative funds covering the match from taking it from design through construction. Those state legislative funds have dwindled over the years. And so we are going to be looking for some participation by either the city, the borough, or the state in covering the match commitment to carry it through construction. But also, we need to finalize a commitment for the maintenance of the path once it's constructed, which we believe the borough will take on. But that is a question for the assembly to consider at a future meeting date. So we're going to be having these discussions internally and with the city mayor and borough mayor to figure out the path forward here to hash out the final details to get this project to construction in the coming months. But we'll wait to see the outcome of the report meeting later this month. A couple other items. The policy board did accept the technical committee's last edits to the TIP amendment number 2 at their meeting on December 17th. And that was released for public comment on December 21st in consideration of the holidays with Christmas and New Year's. Rather than doing a standard 30-day comment period, I extended it to 40 days. So the comment period on the amendment will close on January 30th. And we will bring that amendment back forward to the technical committee and policy board for approval at your February meetings. I'll show you later on the agenda, but we did have a few comments that have come in from DOT on the amendment for some additional minor funding changes for other projects that were not related as part of the TIP amendment. And then I think my last update here for the policy board meeting was this was postponed the last couple of meetings, but they did accept the state DOT's 2026 safety performance measure targets. So rather than create our own for our area, simply supporting the statewide targets. And that concludes my report. Any questions on those items? Yes, John?
Do you know when that railroad board meeting is?
Would be, the real estate committee meeting is on the 14th, and then it will go to the full board meeting. I have to look up what that date is.
Okay. Would you mind just shooting me those dates? So you get a
Yeah, no
chance? Thanks.
Okay. Yes, Bob?
Is the funding source for the Chena River Wall project changed, main funding source at all?
No, it's still federal funding. And right now it's predominantly funded with transportation alternative program dollars,
The TAP,
TAP dollars, yeah.
does the TIP show it as being funded by the TAP dollars at this point, or is it showing being funded?
Right now, the funding is in the out years.
Right.
So, 2028 or
And
later.
beyond, yeah.
Yeah, correct. So it doesn't have, for construction, it doesn't have funding programmed on it directly, but we do have quite a bit of carry forward of transportation alternative program dollars.
So that TAP funding can only be used for bicycle paths or things like that?
Non-motorized facilities, yeah, generally, yep. And anything related to transit.
So we're looking at the new estimate, 6 million plus to be funded by TAP.
It won't be entirely.
Some,
We can throw a few million in there of transportation alternative program dollars, but it'll also have to be supplemented with either surface transportation program or STP dollars, or potentially CMAQ. So congestion mitigation, air quality dollars. So it will end up at that price tag, it'll end up being a combination of funding sources. But in 2027, we do have $5 million in funding that's not programmed to any project. So we do have enough funding available to take it to construction in 2027 through multiple funding sources.
all right, thank you.
Yep. All right, any other questions? Okay, here and none, we'll move on to our open public comment period. Is there any member of the public that wishes to provide testimony today on anything not listed on the agenda as an action item? And there are no action items today, so it's open to anyone about any topic. I don't see any in the room. You don't see any online, so we'll go ahead and close the public comment period. Move on to our first item underneath old business, the federal fiscal year 2023 through 2027 Transportation Improvement Program Amendment number 2. As shown on page 8 in the packet. Again, we have advertised this amendment to be open for public comment from December 21st through January 30th, which is a 40-day time period. And again, at the conclusion of this comment period, we will resolve all the comments that we have received, and we will present the final amendment to the technical committee and policy board for approval at your February meetings. Page 9, just as a reminder, these are the 6 changes that are subject to the amendment related to the FAST Improvement Program funding, FAST ADA improvements, Old Stees, the Parks Highway Sheep Creek Road Extension intersection, a couple projects there, and then our funding and summary sub-allocations. We did host our interagency consultation meeting with the EPA, Federal Highways, and Federal Transit Administration on December 11th, and went through all of these projects which were subject to the amendment, and they had no concerns on the air quality side of these being included and advancing in the amendment. So that we expect to get a concurrence letter on air quality conformity at the conclusion of this process. And then I just included in the packet just the pages of the tip that have changes as part of this amendment. So Olivia, you can kind of scroll through pages 10, 11, 12, 13, just real quickly. You'll see those highlighted there. The changes are shown in red text. And then on page 14, this is our kind of working draft of our public comment response summary. We haven't received any general public comments yet on the amendment, but we have received 3 sets of requested changes to the TIF from DOT staff. One is for the Steves Joe interchange, increasing the design funding by $750,000. Another one is for the Chena River Walk to bump up the right-of-way phase slightly, just another $70,000. And then a couple design increases for the Morris Thompson Cultural and Visitor Center, Laborie Transportation Center enhancements. And then just this morning, I also received a 4th one for the ADA improvements program for the Steves Highway path. They wanted to increase their utility phase from 35,000 up to 105,000 to move 4 utility poles and some underground utility work to get some obstructions out of the way of that path. So all of these changes here that I've received from DOT, they qualify underneath the threshold for administrative modification. So we can accommodate these minor funding changes in the amendment during the comment period without having to restart the open public comment period. But as we track through these will all again be presented to the technical committee and policy board for approval again at your February meeting as part of the amendment. But Olivia is continuing to push social media and our other advertising methods to get word out to the public if there's any comment folks want to make on the amendment to submit that to FAST plan. So that'll continue through this month. So hopefully we do see some general public comments as well. But we're 3 weeks away from the end of the comment period. So that's my update at this time. Are there any questions or discussion on the amendment? Okay, seeing none, then we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is item 7D, the electric vehicle charging stations project nominations. This begins on page 15 of the packet. Some of these materials are repeated from the packet for last month. We do not yet have estimates from Ethan at DOT as far as the cost of the installations for level 2 and level 3 charging stations at the sites that were nominated to us. Those sites are found on page 17. But we understood that it may take them a month or 2 to prepare those planning level estimates to help inform this. But one thing that is new on page 18, should the technical committee want to use scoring criteria to prioritize and rank these projects, I did, edit this document in consideration of some of the comments that were made at our last technical committee meeting, specifically under user demand and convenience, considering AADT values, so average annual daily traffic values for the roads in which these stations would be on. And then on the bottom there, specifically considering the distance from other charging station as part of that scoring criteria. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see the points available for each of these categories based on comments received at the policy board meeting last month. They wanted to double the weight or double the score amount for 3 of the categories, which was accessibility, safety, and consistency with our EV infrastructure deployment plan. So I bumped those up. Again, I'm open to any comments from this committee or the policy board and how you would like me to modify this. So based on what I've heard today, those are the changes that I have captured. But I am open to any other changes this committee or the policy board would like to see for this evaluation criteria. Or if I made the edit and it's not quite in line with what the comment was made, I'm open to feedback on that as well. So we're gonna end up keeping this item on the agenda until we receive those estimates, and then we'll get to a decision with the technical committee on whether or not you all would like to score the locations utilizing this criteria. But I think it's also helpful for us in prioritization, looking at the total cost of each of the sites that were nominated. So again, not an action item here today, but open to any feedback or questions. Yeah, Bob.
Were we going to eliminate charging stations that were on private property, or are we going to prioritize them in the second rank or something?
That's what we discussed at our last meeting, is potentially doing a phased approach for installation of charging stations. And the first phase might be publicly owned properties because of the challenges with the right-of-way phase on private properties. But as we score and rank these, I think the technical committee will make that official recommendation at a future meeting as to which group I think y'all should move forward as a historic bundle.
I just don't see it reflected here, not yet, anyway.
Not yet.
Okay.
We haven't made that decision, but we've had that discussion yet.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Again, if you have any feedback on this evaluation criteria on page 18, you can give me a call, shoot me an email. I'm happy to adjust this if you think that there's something that's missing here. Okay, we're moving right along then. Let's go on to item 8A, our new business, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan update, public survey results and next steps. I'm going to turn it over to Olivia Lunsford online. She has created a dashboard for the survey results that we received during the first push for public input on our Metropolitan Transportation Plan update. So she'll share with you what we've learned so far from the public as far as transportation needs throughout our network.
Thanks, Jackson. Yeah, I'm gonna keep my camera off just because I'm working with Guatemalan internet and I never know what's gonna happen in the middle of the day. So anyways, I have been working on a dashboard to compile information both for the public, also for our consultants, to make their job a little bit easier when it comes to writing the report that you will all see eventually. But we had a few different data points, or I guess access, like for data, access points for data. We had the survey that was just basically asking people, what's your age, what's your zip code, et cetera, and how are your needs being met. And then we also had the comment map, which was separate from those one-time entries from people. So in terms of the one-time entry responses, I think we had 164, which was really great and pretty unexpected for the MTP, the launch of the MTP, especially because the survey was sort of running in tandem with surveying exercises for the comprehensive plan with the borough. So we're super lucky that our consultants are actually also working on that plan. And so there was a lot of synchronicity and really a lot of forward thought in terms of how we were going to address that. But I was really happy to get almost 170 responses just to the surveys. And then on average, it seemed like everybody put at least 2 pins down on the map, which we'll get to. We had about 380 pins dropped onto our map in the Fairbanks and North Pole areas. And then I did decide to give the ugliest roads question, which I'm sure you all remember. I decided to give that its own little dashboard as well, because we really did want to just kind of find out what people are thinking about the roads. And as I had mentioned, we were featured on KUAC News for this one particular question a while ago. And what I had told the crew over there was just that we're really wanting to know not just what road is it that stands out to you, what is it about that road that stands out to you? And it doesn't necessarily have to be aesthetic. And people really took this question and just ran with it. And the responses that we got in those explanations were exactly what I was expecting to see, which was like, whether it was snow removal or chain link fences or potholes, like you name it. I think we even had a couple regarding like emergency response issues. And so it really just was it was meant to be a broad question, and people really responded to it in a broad way as well. So the first page is just the general survey results, and I made this very similar to our bike lane signing and striping pilot program dashboard. A lot of these data points talk to each other. So one that I really like is looking at things like, people are wanting more sidewalks and shared use paths. Obviously, this one is the one thing that you would change to make transportation better. That sort of beat out, and people could only choose one on both of these. So it wasn't like click all the ones that apply, which is something we normally do. This was like just select one. And so this one won out over a lot of the other ones. And when you click this bar, you can see how the age groups change and where the zip code changes. And I did have dreams to filter out the map comments based on zip code, but then I remembered that those data points and these data points don't necessarily talk to each other, so it might not be as helpful as I was hoping. But I really love seeing like, okay, how are our seniors being served? And you can see that generally they could use a little bit more of everything. And then we did have some specific comments, and those relate to snow removal and just the general slickness of the surfaces, which I really appreciate, because this is high on my radar of concern. We have an aging population, and so far what we're hearing from people outside of this survey effort is that needs are not being met right now. And as people are aging, they're starting to get a little bit more worried. And then you can check out like 16 to 25 years. These were probably some of my high school kids that I interviewed at the library. But the majority of them also want more sidewalks and shared use paths and enforce speeding and other driver behavior problems, which is very consistent with what I was hearing from this group of teenagers at the library. There were about 7 or 8 of them, and they were all just eating so much pizza and telling me how driver behavior is so bad that they actually have started playing a game of chicken at certain spots and certain roadways, because they're starting to just try to find the humor in it as opposed to fear it, which was a bit concerning. So anyways, you can go through and you can also see like, okay, if people picked other and they took the time to type out a particular comment, you can see how this comment relates to the rest of the data. So senior, living in the general Fairbanks area, 1-person household. And then you can also look down here to see household income. So, in future evaluations and when I make an environmental justice dashboard, responses like this will be really helpful in understanding, okay, this person has an average household income of $50,000 to $75,000. According to the census data, it might be easy to assume that they do own a vehicle. And I can't, unfortunately, make these particular metrics talk to everything else. So like if you click the 6% of folks who are in the low income range, I can't necessarily filter out the data all over here. But once you start clicking around, you can kind of see how it all relates. And these at least do articulate when you're looking at other data. The one thing that's working well for people in the Fairbanks area is that they can travel in a timely manner without a lot of delays, which is definitely something that I know Jackson, Corey, and I are regularly talking about in the office, just how we don't really have like a traffic problem, even if you feel like you're stuck in traffic for an extended amount of time. Like at the end of the day, go visit another city and you'd be like, oh, we don't have traffic at all. And so, yeah, you can travel in a timely manner without a lot of delays. And it seems like in terms of routes and signal timing, in a lot of places, that is working out for the majority of the community, as well as having more than one way to go where you need to go, which I'm sure is at no fault or like is not an accident, because our construction season is so short that we're always needing alternative ways to get certain places. And so these two data points make a lot of sense to me in terms of population and also, yeah, just the need to get from A to B in our construction season. So unfortunately, not very many people think that, roads and sidewalk maintenance is going very well. And then we did get some other comments. And people really don't feel safe on the roads and sidewalks. And when we get to the map data, you will see that really, it really transpired in those key point data opportunities for people on the map. Our number one category was safety. And yeah, you can just say unsafe vehicles traversing the roads. This person is, like 36 to 45. They live, I actually don't know where 99, that's the university, right? So they don't necessarily feel safe to be navigating in traffic. So yeah, all of these comments are really great to read, and it's really fun to just go through and see how the data talks to each other. But we can move on to the comment map, unless, do I have any questions while I'm on this tab? No questions. Okay. Okay. And this is the comment map. So I tried to build an app that didn't have all of these selected in the beginning. Can't do it right now. I don't know what's up with this particular app interface, but anyways, when you open the map, all of the options are selected, but all you have to do is just click through them if you want them all off. And then you can go back through and turn them on as you would like. So safety issues, I mean, you can see they make up quite the bulk of a lot of the comments. And there are little dots on the map. A lot of the comments were other comments because people didn't find that intersections, pedestrian crossings, or speeding covered their concerns. And as we were mentioning this kind of in the beginning of the data collection process, we were really trying to pre-filter comments. So at first we were getting emails and I was getting text messages on my work phone about like not having an option to put in a comment when you put your pin down. But again, we were doing legwork on the front end, and I'm so glad that we did, because 380 responses would be a lot to go through in code. And I'll show you what I mean on the next page for the ugliest roads, because we got like 100, every single person responded to that question. So it was like 165 responses, and filtering through them was a lot. But you can go through this map and click on the safety issue. The ones that people really are going to want to actually click on the most are probably the others, because that gave you the opportunity to put in a note. So U Park Elementary parking pickup area is not large enough. This was a super cool example of a comment that is definitely a safety issue. It is something within the realm of an MPO and our capabilities, which is also really exciting. And it has to do with something that we're really, really trying to put a fine point on in this iteration of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, incorporating kids and just like a right to movement from a very young age. We're always, and this is just countries in general, but cities, the census, whatever, always ready to count children as a part of our population, but the bulk of the planning exercises and engineering exercises don't necessarily account for things like this. And so our MTP is going to try to take these comments and work on incorporating them in a way that's a little bit more fully rounded for the entire community. This intersection would benefit from a roundabout. Oh snap, it's the R word. Add streetlights. And so again, I think those were probably early comments where people were like, oh, maybe I could put lighting in another area, but maybe they consider it safety. Maybe other people would just consider it nice to have. So you can go through and see just where people are putting like a pin on a tricky intersection. And I would certainly agree, there are a lot of these intersections that are tricky. And it enables us to be able to hone in on those particular places. No pedestrian crossings at these locations, which is also really interesting when you see the bulk of like down here. I actually know this exact area. I walk my dog here all the time, and I actually prefer to cross here because the line of sight is good enough for me to see vehicles coming both ways. And if I do need to get either over to the river, over to the other side, mostly when there's another dog about to interact with us, I really hate crossing here because it feels scary because people have enough time to accelerate just to the point where it might be tricky. So it was really fun looking around the map and seeing those particular safety issues. Then we've got connectivity issues, no sidewalk or roadway connections, no separated or shared use paths. Of course, those also made up the bulk of the connectivity piece, which relates exactly back to what we were seeing in those survey results. People are really feeling like there's a disconnect for alternative mobility options in our existing network. And this MTP will aim to provide some really approachable solutions for that. And then other comments in the connectivity area include things like lighting, stoplights, pedestrians need to be able to cross. I think there was actually one about a bridge somewhere, which was really cool. Add a bike path to connect Mitchell through Airport to Cushman. Really specific comments like that. So people really took their time. Then, of course, we've got the maintenance issues. These are all of the diamonds on the map. But again, when you look at those in addition or comparison to the safety comments, the safety comments take the cake. That's really what we're learning. But we do have some specific comments about snow removal and storage. Somebody really liked that particular area. They put a lot of dots over there. But no other comments really that relate specifically to snow. So drainage issues, that was one. I think we actually did get quite a few comments. I can't remember under which category, but of course the water flooding issue underneath the Pigger Bridge and it being unusable and impassable for several months a year was also regularly heard in conversation and was definitely on this map. And then we've got other issues and comments. So people did find the way that we provided to put in non-categorized comments. And of course, they took every opportunity to give us some particular comments. Looks like this person parsed them out just a little bit for us, which is really great. And you can click through and see, paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs of really detailed information. So this isn't necessarily an analysis of the particular comments that we received. That's up to the consultants, but I wanted to provide you all and the public with an opportunity to be able to click through and see what it is that people are saying. And I'm still waiting to hear back on data from another data source, bikemaps.org. People can go in there and self-report near misses and things like that. And then we did actually receive a data download from Pam Golden and Nathan Steven with DOT. They actually provided me with the data download for the statewide issue or incident reporter, or just like reporting things that are less than ideal in your community for the transportation network. So we're going to transpose both of those over top of these to continue the assessment. And then our last one, of course, is the one everybody wants to know. What is the ugliest road in Fairbanks? And what does that even mean? Okay, 158. Couldn't remember if it was 58 or 68, but it was a fun way to kick off the conversation. Some of my favorites were like, I find it strange that this is the first question, but also here's my 5 sentence long paragraph about all of the roads that I have problems with. So it was just really funny. It was meant to be kind of abrasive at the beginning just to get people's brains activated in this space and like, oh, that's a weird question. Let me think about this. And some people were like, huh, I really don't know. And then other people were like, gosh, so many. So what I did here for filtering it out was I basically created filters related to all 158 responses that were basically just analyzing it in a way where like if the comment mentioned this road, it would go into this category. So these aren't like exclusive to one comment, like multiple people put multiple road names in comments. And so if they mention any of them, it is in one of these boxes. So Airport Way takes the cake, as I said earlier. And what you can do is you can go into this little search bar and you can type in airport and you can read all of the comments that relate specifically to that road or any other road. And I found that to be really helpful. I do wish that these dashboards had the option for me to make these just talk to this, but again, it's not possible with this particular feature. But I love just like the clear and concise way of showing the mentions and what kind of data we're actually working with. So I don't have specific comments because yeah, people really went for it. And it's a lot to read through, but a lot of the comments do relate to safety. I mean, see, it's not just about aesthetics. Traffic's too fast, no crosswalks, could be pleasant, blah, blah, blah. So it's really fun reading through and just seeing people's interpretations of what it means to be like the ugliest road in any given area. And then aside from all of these, we had 47 mentions of other particular roads. Of course, GARS was its own thing. Some people spelled it out. Some people just said GARS. It's an intersection, not necessarily road, but I guess it's 4 roads. So whatever. And then PD and Bradway also got some honorable mentions. So that is the general overview of the data that we received. We did a whole bunch of connection opportunities with the public. I did 3 different what do we call them? Public comment pop-ups. The last one was at Black Spruce Brewing, and I think I told you guys this, but it was just so successful. I got like 20 paper surveys filled out and handed back to me. It was like people were just really stoked to be having their after work beverage and doing like a little bit of homework that relates directly to shaping our community. And I will absolutely be doing that again with printed paper surveys that are short enough for people to do. And we do have all of the responses from that implemented in here as well. Our consultants were amazing, and all of the paper feedback that we got back as well, they implemented it into this survey and onto the comment map for us. So that is the overview. We do have this linked on our website, and I've got a lot of social media stuff happening right now, so I don't want to overwhelm people with links, but I do plan to pop this onto our socials here pretty soon. So yeah, any questions, any surprises, things that you didn't see coming? Crickets. Cool.
Excellent. Callan's got his hand up.
Yeah, good job. I enjoyed this. I just sent you an email as well. Would you mind sharing the link?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
email
I
the
see.
link to the full
Yeah.
technical. Well,
Yep, I can absolutely email this to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, you guys.
yeah, thanks, Olivia.
Yeah.
All right, well, as far as next steps on our Metropolitan Transportation Plan update, our consultant team now is working on updating our travel demand model. And they are still digesting all these survey results as far as identifying transportation needs that could potentially turn into transportation projects. On my side, I'm looking at the existing project list that we have in our existing long-range plan and flagging all of the projects that will continue to move forward to this next MTP. And then obviously allowing room for these new project ideas to be put into the mix. And then there'll be a future exercise to kind of divvy those up between short, medium, long range. But our consultant team will be putting together screening criteria or evaluation criteria, a small subset to look at every project that we have already on the books and planned, as well as all of these new ideas, so that they can all be rescored, so we can reanalyze all of our priorities. I would anticipate the next thing that's presented to the technical committee will be the needs analysis. They have prepared an existing conditions report, but the needs analysis will be a reflection of all this behind the scenes work to present to the technical committee and the steering committee for this effort. So we will end up, this may not be on the February agenda, but March and April, there'll be more touch points as our work is underway. And I think the next, I guess, interface with the public and open house events and will likely be in late summer or in the fall. But we are shooting for an adoption of our plan update, potentially. Well, we'd like to have it done by the end of the year, although that schedule may slip slightly. So we'll, anyways, continue to kind of monitor that. Any other questions or comments or discussion? Okay. Seeing none. The last thing is informational items, obligations and offsets for today's meeting. This begins on page 19. I just have the obligation report for the meeting here today. As far as obligations this year, we're now in the second quarter of the federal fiscal year. And our obligations are only at 5%. Really, the only obligations that have occurred to date is the funding for our office. And one other obligation for advanced project definition, which was $80,000. And so I'm still waiting to see that these obligations go across the table. I did call Randy Bailey the other day. They're like, hey, this feels really weird that we don't have really any obligations yet this year. Because it's definitely behind schedule from what we've seen in previous years, but she didn't, in her communications with the project managers at DOT, these obligations just have not yet been turned in, but they are working on them, and we should see more obligations in the coming months to fill out our year. We'll see if there's going to be any issues with state match moving forward for any of these projects. That's something that's unknown to me at this time. But anyways, we'll continue to monitor these, and but right now we're light on obligations. Any questions? No. Okay, not hearing any. That's all we had for me today, so we are going to get out of here early. But I will open the floor to see if there's any committee member comments or updates from any of your respective agencies before we break. See any in the room? Or any online? Okay, well, is there a motion to adjourn? John, the TARDIS, is there a second? Randy? Any objection? Hear none. We're adjourned at 12:44. And ask us to leave ever. Thanks, everybody, and Happy New Year. Thanks, Olivia.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It's good to see you all, and yeah, Happy New Year.